Hi everybody and welcome to today's assembly. The focus is Earth Day. So what is Earth Day? Well, Earth Day is an annual global event that takes place on the 22nd of April every single year. Although this year they've stretched it out so it begins on the 20th and finishes on the 22nd. So it's a 3-day thing this year. Now the first year that Earth Day was ever held was back in 1970. And since then more and more people have shown their support for the environment by becoming involved in it. So why is Earth Day important? Well, it's best summed up by this quote here: there is no planet B. We ask your teacher to pause this now, and I want you to try and explain to your teacher what you think this phrase means. Pause now. Right then, there is no planet B means that we don't have any other options. The only place where we know where life exists, the only place where human beings live, is on planet Earth. It's if we damage our home, if we damage our planet, if something goes wrong on our planet, we can't go anywhere else. There is nowhere else for us to go. So that's what they mean by there is no planet B. So Earth Day is an opportunity to remind ourselves that this Earth, where we live, the planet Earth, is our home and it's important to us all. Now, the Earth itself is in trouble because we as people, we as humans, are doing things that are harming our world and, of course, the life then that lives upon it. So what I'd like to do now is ask your teacher to pause this again, and I'd like to think of some of the environmental problems that we are facing around the world right now. Pause now. Right then, how many of these did you manage to get? So we've got air pollution. Air pollution is when we burn things in factories or in power stations and the smoke and gases go up into the air. This can cause breathing problems for those people with asthma, but the gases that go into the air as well can cause things such as the greenhouse effect, which results in global warming. If you look at the picture there with a polar bear on the ice, that's a result of global warming. What global warming is the Earth slowly but surely getting warmer and warmer and warmer and warmer. Now, I'm sure that on some very cold days, especially in winter, you'd quite like to be a little bit warmer outside. But it does have some major, major, major problems. Global warming and the warming up of the Earth, Earth's average temperature, means that things like the polar ice caps, so that's the Antarctic and the Arctic, that the ice there is melting. Now, for animals like the polar bear, which lives in the Arctic, it hunts on the ice. Well, if there's less ice, it will struggle to hunt. So polar bears are finding it harder and harder and harder to eat, to find food, to hunt. You've also got the problem where the melting ice water then is going into the sea. That in itself then causes rising sea levels, which causes flooding around the world, in our towns and our cities along the coast. We've also got the problem with rubbish. And it's not just rubbish that you find in the streets, in the park, around school. Shouldn't be any in school, but use a bin, please. But out and about, you find rubbish on the land, but we also find a lot of rubbish that gets washed out to sea, in our rivers and in streams. I mean, rubbish at the sea is so much of a problem that there is an area of the Pacific Ocean between California and Hawaii of floating bits of plastic that is bigger than the US state of Texas. It's huge. And that's a massive problem for sea creatures such as turtles or fish that might get caught up in that and then eventually die. Then we've got the problem of deforestation. Deforestation is a process of chopping down trees. Now, we chop down trees for a variety of reasons. That might be because we need the timber to build things, or we need the land to be able to grow crops or to farm animals. The problem with this is that trees are a major producer of a gas that we breathe called oxygen. We need that oxygen to live. But they also take out the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, which slows down global warming and the greenhouse effect. Forests are also home to many, many, many species of animal. Up to 80% of all life on Earth lives in forests. And if we chop down the forest, we chop down their homes, and we run the risk of those animals becoming extinct. That means there'll be no more of them ever. We've also got the threat of animals being poached, so they're hunted for various reasons or killed for various reasons. For example, the northern white rhino that you see here. So there are many, many, many more ways in which the Earth in which we live is in trouble. So why is Earth Day important? Well, since the start of the Industrial Revolution, about 200 years ago or so, due to humans doing things around the world, the average temperature has gone up by 1 degree Celsius. Now, 1 degree Celsius doesn't really sound a great deal at all, and it really isn't if you're in the classroom. But 1 degree Celsius increase around the world can cause all sorts of chaos to the planet. So if you look at the picture there of the coral on the left-hand side is what a healthy coral should look like. The coral on the right-hand side, the white-looking coral, that is all bleached, and it's bleached because the sea temperature has gone up by 1 or 2 degrees Celsius in that place. It means that the life that lives there can't live there anymore because it's simply too warm for them, so it dies out. So instead of having a big, vibrant, life-filled coral reef like you might find in Finding Nemo, you end up with a dead, desolate reef where nothing lives. So what's the theme for this year? Well, the theme is Restore Our Earth. Basically, to restore something means to fix something. Not just because we care, but because we live on it too. And everybody deserves to live on a healthy planet. Now, this year, the aims a variety of campaigns to restore the Earth, such as the Canopy Project. So it's planting more trees to replace a lot of the trees that are chopped down, to give animals a home, to produce more oxygen, and to take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. The Great Global Cleanup. Basically, let's pick up the rubbish and put it where it needs to be. And if we can recycle and reuse rubbish in our public spaces, all the better. And then the last one is the Earth Challenge. And that's to give us the power to capture and collect billions of observations. That means to see what's going on around the world in areas that includes air quality, climate change, and plastic pollution. Basically, can we see what the problem is? And if we can, then can we do something about it? So why is it important to fix the planet that we live on? Why is it important to restore the Earth? Earth Day is a campaign that features plants and animals that provide us with essential services to our ecosystem. The ecosystem is how nature works with each other. Now, we depend on these for our world to stay healthy. So such life involves coral, bees, butterflies, forests, and fish. Now, obviously, after the recent pandemic that we've got, the Earth needs all the help and love and care that we can give it to restore it back to its former glory. So forests, they do play a massively important role. They capture and store huge amounts of carbon and they release oxygen, a gas that we breathe, into the air. As I said before, they are home to about 80% of all the planet's animals and plants. It's an awful lot. Bees. You'll start to see bees now starting their everyday business of flying from plant to plant. Well, they're essential pollinators. They help plants to reproduce, to make more of themselves. So we need that for things like crops and fruits. So they provide food for humans and other animals. Every third bite of food that we take is thanks to the work of bees. They do an awful lot for us. Now, strangely, a queen bee can live up to 5 years, but she has to have the help of her worker bees and drone bees, but they only live for about 5 or 6 weeks. Coral, I've spoken about coral before. Coral's the sort of area that you found at the beginning of the film Finding Nemo. Okay, you find them in the seas, lots of fish, lots of crabs and lobster, things like that swimming around. Okay, now they only take up about 1% of the ocean floor. However, they support more than a quarter, that's 25% of all ocean life. The largest coral reef is the Great Barrier Reef, and it sits just off the coast of Queensland in Australia. It's so big you can actually see it from space. Butterflies, again, just like the bees, you'll start to see butterflies around very soon. And they also pollinate a variety of plants, and they create diversity amongst those plants and animal life. Now, scientists believe that there are about 15,000 to 20,000 different species of butterfly in the world. That's a lot of different types of butterfly. So what can we do to help? Now, we sometimes feel with such massive problems that it's almost impossible to do anything about it. But that's not true. We can all do something about it. Because if we just make a small difference here and a small difference there, you imagine millions upon millions upon millions of people making a difference here and a difference there. Those small differences, when you add them up, will make a massive difference and start to have an impact and start to make a change. So what can we do? Well, we can stop to reduce the consumption of fossil fuels. Take less car journeys, therefore burn less petrol. Do you really need the heating on that day? So use less gas. Things like that. Switch off the lights. You turn off the lights, we don't need to generate the power. If we don't need to generate the power, we don't need to burn coal or gas in order to create the electricity in the first place. Unplug electronic devices when not in use. Does it really need to be switched on, or is it just on for the sake of it because nobody's turned it off? Can we choose materials such as bamboo or woods from sustainable forests rather than using plastics? Can we reduce the pollution? Can we walk or use a bike whenever possible? Can we put our rubbish in the correct waste bins to stop animals eating them and getting sick? Can we actually recycle our waste products so that they can be used again, so we don't need to keep wasting and building up that rubbish around the world. We could also reuse something. So, for example, here you've got a picture of a plastic bottle that's been reused to make a bird feeder. Another one there that suggests is eating less meat or dairy products, because farming or animal farming for cattle takes up an awful lot of space, an awful lot of land. So a lot of rainforest is chopped down to have this kind of farming in place. Animals such as cows also produce an awful lot of methane. That's a sort of smelly gas, and that's a harmful greenhouse gas as well. Now, it's not saying don't eat meat, and it's not saying don't have dairy products. It's just suggesting maybe have a little bit less than you normally would and have vegetables instead. So at Red Lane, what could we do here? Well, we could recycle our waste paper. We've got a big waste recycle bin down near the infant building. We can put our waste paper in there, or we can use the paper as scrap paper first, and then we can go and recycle it, so we use less paper. Also, recycle our drinks bottles. We could use less photocopying. I'm not saying a word. We could turn off lights when they're not needed. We could use the litter bins in school to make sure that the environment in which we live is clean and tidy. And I know that the vast majority of you are absolutely brilliant at this and do use the bins. But if you see some rubbish on the floor, put it in a bin. We have also recently begun the process of creating a new wildflower meadow as well near year 3. Now, the seeds have been spread across there, so I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that we'll start to see some flowers growing there soon. Now, actions can be taken at home too. So, what actions will you take today? That's me done. Have a good day. Bye-bye.